An $80,000 police reward paid directly to the detectives themselves. An endangered species wiped out by rainfall. And, well, a global economy hanging by a thread over a single waterway.
Welcome to the Claire Horatio Daily World Brief for Thursday, June 11th, 2026.
We are completely bypassing any abstract geopolitical theories today because the lead story requires our absolute concrete focus. We're looking at a volatile, immediate escalation in the Middle East. The United States and Iran are exchanging direct military strikes for a second consecutive day.
And this exchange is violently straining it's tearing apart the April ceasefire, sending immediate shockwaves across the global economy.
Yeah.
I mean, our core mission today is to unpack the human and public consequences of this escalating military collision.
We're also examining the rising political tide of xenophobia being weaponized ahead of elections in South Africa. We'll contrast that with a severe labor crisis in Europe, analyze a deeply flawed death penalty verdict just handed down by a military court in Thailand, and track a tragic extinction event unfolding right now in the forests of Indonesia. The facts on the ground between Washington and Tehran are just moving incredibly fast. Overnight and into this morning, U.S. Central Command executed a wave of military strikes targeting surveillance and radar sites in southern Iran.
Which directly follows President Donald Trump's public vow to hit Iran, quote, hard to force a diplomatic deal. The messaging from the administration is blunt. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated unequivocally that Iran was given a chance to make a deal, and because they didn't take it, American bombs are dropping on key facilities.
Tehran's retaliation materialized almost instantly. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps fired 12 ballistic missiles at the U.S. Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan.
Jordanian state media reports their air defense systems intercepted 20 missiles or hostile targets. They claim no human casualties on their soil, but, the regional spillover is already devastating.
In Bahrain, falling shrapnel from intercepted Iranian drones tore through homes, injuring an 11-year-old girl in Manama. And Kuwait was forced to temporarily shut down its entire airspace to commercial traffic after intercepting hostile aerial targets.
There's also an immediate economic translation to this military action, and it is severe. The IRGC claims to have hit 2 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, an area state media reported as completely closed.
So Brent crude oil instantly spiked to roughly $95 a barrel. But let's translate this. What does a conflict thousands of miles away in the Strait of Hormuz actually mean for a listener's grocery bill next week?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz is the physical bottleneck for 20% of the world's entire oil supply. When the IRGC threatens that specific waterway, the global shipping industry panics.
Meaning that spike to $95 a barrel isn't just, abstract stock market minutia. It instantly raises the cost of marine diesel and aviation fuel.
Within weeks, the cost to transport agricultural goods, manufacture basic consumer products, and stock store shelves rises. And those costs are passed directly to you at the checkout counter.
Disrupting the Strait of Hormuz is basically a direct, immediate injection of inflation into every household budget on the planet. And the maritime conflict is expanding beyond the strait, too.
U.S. Central Command fired precision munitions directly into the engine room of the Palo-flagged MT Citabello. They accused that specific vessel of attempting to transport oil from Iran,
which violates the American blockade of Iranian ports that was established shortly after the April ceasefire. The Iranian Foreign Ministry fired back, declaring that these overnight attacks rendered the 2-month-old ceasefire practically meaningless.
They're accusing the U.S. of torpedoing the diplomatic process through contradictory military aggression. And this conflict, it cannot be contained to a single geographic box.
Over the past 2 days, Israel has simultaneously killed at least 17 people in strikes across southern Lebanon, with 9 people killed in the town of Deir Deba alone.
Iran's leaders are now demanding that any peace deal negotiated with the U.S. and Israel must comprehensively cover Lebanon, which introduces massive complications into the negotiations.
The UN human rights chief is actually sending an investigative team to Lebanon to document violations committed since March. We expect their formal findings by the end of July.
Looking at this timeline, the collapsed April ceasefire functions less like a genuine peace treaty and more like a hastily applied pressure valve on a failing boiler.
It never actually reduced the underlying heat. It merely delayed a larger, more destructive explosion. When leaders discuss geopolitical strikes or precision munitions in the abstract, it sanitizes the horrific reality of average civilians caught in the crossfire.
An 11-year-old girl treated for shrapnel injuries in Bahrain or displaced families navigating sudden evacuation orders in Tyre are the true metrics of this diplomatic failure.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a stark warning regarding this interconnected violence. He characterized the current situation not as a broken ceasefire, but as a lesser fire.
He's explicitly warning against the illusion that a lesser fire won't eventually consume the region in a full fire. It's structurally impossible to achieve localized peace when theaters of war from Tehran to Beirut to the Strait of Hormuz are inextricably linked.
The inflation and economic strain caused by global bottlenecks like the Strait of Hormuz rarely stay confined to financial markets. They create intense resource anxiety on the ground, which really brings us to the global crisis of migration and the hardening, often punitive, political responses to it.
In South Africa, a flight landed in Lagos on Thursday morning, repatriating 268 Nigerians from Johannesburg. This is part of a massive, forced exodus.
Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Malawi are also evacuating their citizens. Campaigners within South Africa have set a hard June 30 deadline for undocumented migrants to leave the country entirely.
The primary catalyst for this hostility is an internal economic crisis. South Africa is grappling with an unemployment rate sitting above 30% as the country heads into crucial local government elections in November 2026.
Migration is being heavily weaponized as a primary campaign issue, resulting in horrific human consequences. Consider a Nigerian man named Justin, who has lived peacefully in South Africa since 1998.
He reported being viciously attacked inside a taxi, forcing him to abandon his belongings and flee for his life simply because of his nationality.
The Nigerian Consul General in South Africa, Ninikanwa Oki Uche, pointed out a massive statistical reality check regarding this violence. Migrants make up less than 10% of South Africa's total population.
Mathematically, they cannot be the root cause of broken education systems, failing healthcare infrastructure, or a 30% unemployment rate. They're being used as highly visible scapegoats by politicians seeking to avoid accountability for decades of systemic governance failures.
President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation on Sunday, announcing a series of severe crackdown measures. His administration is establishing dedicated courts to rapidly accelerate deportations.
They're also creating a comprehensive biometric database for everyone residing in the country and threatening to jail employers who hire undocumented workers.
While Ramaphosa explicitly warned citizens against taking the law into their own hands, the vigilantism continues. Police confirmed 2 Mozambican men were murdered in the Western Cape this month.
Mozambican authorities are attributing those deaths directly to xenophobic violence. We see a profound contrast unfolding in Europe today regarding how nations handle these exact demographic and labor pressures.
Pope Leo is visiting the Canary Islands specifically to advocate for safe, legal pathways for migrants. He's pushing back aggressively against political rhetoric that labels migration an ideological invasion.
To understand the desperation driving this movement, look at the journey of 19-year-old Bakary Jeju. He spent 7 terrifying days at sea in a wooden boat traveling from the Gambia to the Canary Islands.
He told reporters he was fully prepared to die at sea to secure a better life for his family. Meanwhile, Spain is taking a highly pragmatic approach to this influx, driven purely by economic necessity.
The government in Madrid is actively allowing hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants who arrived before December 2025 to regularize their status, granting them residence and work permits.
Private companies, like the Domingo Alonso Group in Gran Canaria, are hiring young migrants the exact moment they turn 18 and leave state care.
A representative for the firm stated plainly that they simply cannot find local citizens willing to work essential jobs as bodywork painters or mechanics.
It's a glaring civic contradiction. It is like a body violently rejecting the exact medicine it needs to survive. European economies physically require this incoming labor to offset their aging, shrinking populations.
Yet, political factions, like Spain's far-right Vox Party, continue to label this regularization process an invasion that will collapse public services.
A new EU pact kicks in this week, aimed at making it easier to detain and deport those arriving by sea. It completely ignores the reality that policies of deterrence don't stop desperate people like Bakary Jeju.
They only ensure the routes they take become deadlier. Local officials are caught directly in the middle of this top-down ideology and on-the-ground reality.
Francis Candle, the Deputy Minister for Welfare on the Canary Islands, explicitly stated they have no one left to work in hotels, drive public buses, or work in construction.
He condemned the broader European strategy of trying to protect itself behind legal walls, instead of creating a functional, realistic migration policy that acknowledges their own severe labor shortages.
For more daily briefings, brain candy explainers, and classic audiobooks, visit clarineratio.com.
When political rhetoric actively targets vulnerable populations, the state institutions designed to protect justice often buckle under the pressure to deliver politically convenient results.
In Thailand, a military court has just sentenced two Uyghur men, Bilal Muhammad and Yusufu Murali, to death for the August 2015 Erawan shrine bombing in Bangkok.
That horrific attack killed 20 people and injured more than 120. But the civic stakes of this verdict are deeply troubling because the 10-year trial has been highly compromised from the very first day.
Both men were kept isolated in military custody and alleged they were brutally tortured into making confessions, which they formally withdrew.
The proceedings were then delayed for years, simply because Thai authorities claimed they couldn't locate a Uyghur-speaking translator.
The defendants rightfully rejected translators offered by the Chinese embassy, fearing state espionage from the very government they were fleeing.
The initial investigation back in 2015 set a dangerous precedent of prioritizing public image over thorough policing.
Highly concerned about the financial impact on their massive tourism industry, the Thai government ordered the blast site cleaned and the bomb crater cemented over within 2 days of the explosion. They destroyed vital forensic evidence.
The Thai police then offered an $80,000 reward for capturing the culprits. And bizarrely, they awarded that money entirely to themselves upon arresting these two men, even while officially acknowledging that 13 other suspects remained at large.
Wait, hold on. The Thai police offered an $80,000 reward, gave it to their own detectives, and then let 13 other suspects walk free.
That is what the official record shows. It's a staggering detail. We also cannot ignore the heavy geopolitical context hanging over this. The bombing occurred exactly 1 month after Thailand controversially and forcibly repatriated 109 Uyghur men back to China, provoking international outrage.
Because the Erawan shrine was highly popular with Chinese tourists, the bombing was widely interpreted as an act of retribution.
The International Commission of Jurists has heavily condemned the proceedings, stating the investigation and trial have been rife with human rights violations that expose profound systemic deficiencies in Thailand's criminal justice system.
A justice apparatus that prioritizes closing a case quickly to protect the tourism industry over establishing genuine, evidence-based accountability leaves everyone betrayed.
The families of the victims from the 2015 bombing don't receive true justice, and the accused are sent to their deaths through a broken, financially compromised system.
We often measure the failure of state institutions by how they fail to protect human life. But we're simultaneously watching a massive failure to protect the natural world from our own violent climate anomalies.
A new study reveals the immense ecological toll of last November's cyclone Senyor, which struck the Indonesian island of Sumatra.
The storm was already the deadliest natural disaster of 2025, killing over 1,000 people. But researchers just confirmed it also wiped out 58 critically endangered Tapanuli orangutans.
To understand the severity of that loss, we have to look at the fragile population data. There were fewer than 800 Tapanuli orangutans in existence.
This single 4-day extreme weather event eradicated roughly 7% of their total global species. This is a distinct species of ape that was only discovered by science in 2017.
Studies indicate their genetic diversity is so fragile that they will go extinct entirely if they continue to lose more than 1% of their population annually.
We normally measure the destruction of storms in human fatalities or billions of dollars in infrastructure damage. How does heavy rainfall physically wipe out an apex forest dweller?
The danger isn't the rain itself, it's the geography of their remaining habitat. Humanitarian workers on the ground provided harrowing details of the aftermath, finding carcasses semi-buried in thick mud and splintered logs.
Professor Eric Maillard noted that the massive landslides triggered by the rainfall and the steep forest terrain leave even powerful orangutans completely helpless.
They are swept away and mangled by the sheer force of the debris, with flesh literally ripped from bone. The Indonesian government has temporarily halted major developments in the Batang Toru Protected Forest.
Specifically, they're pausing mining, oil palm plantations, and hydropower expansion to assess the ecological risks. When human infrastructure carves up the forest, it weakens the soil,
Making those landslides even more fatal because the apes have nowhere to flee. The researchers emphasized that human-induced climate change played a significant role in making Cyclone Senyar such an anomalous, devastating event.
It forces us to understand that climate change isn't merely slow, incremental warming that we can gradually adapt to over centuries.
It manifests right now as violent, highly anomalous weather events that possess the sheer physical force to instantly erase an entire branch of evolution in a matter of days.
Today's stories show several distinct pressures testing the world's civic and moral resilience simultaneously. We're not looking at a single unified crisis, but rather a spectrum of systemic stress tests.
From military brinkmanship in the Strait of Hormuz to failing justice systems in Bangkok and collapsing ecosystems in Sumatra, it raises a vital question regarding consequence.
If a deeply flawed 10-year trial in Thailand or a single violent cyclone in Indonesia can irrevocably alter human lives and permanently erase entire species, what does the irreversible damage of an escalating Middle East war or a continent-wide migration crackdown look like a decade from now?
Something to mull over as these interconnected stories continue to develop.
For more Daily World briefs, brain candy explainers, and classic audiobooks, make sure to visit clarinhoratio.com.